dead dreams, bought and sold. You gotta try and receive your goal. However you do it, however you do it, however you may. Don't never listen to what nobody say.
There's certain things that burn and inspire me.
To be a better man, better than what I am.
It's a feeling, desire to...
Yeah. But we're back for another episode of Stories for Experiences, guys, and I have John in our chair. Now, John, can you please introduce yourself for us?
Absolutely. My name is John Crane Wellesby. I am a Canberra native. I am an amateur theologian, tech guy, and an online mentor and transformation coach.
Yeah, nice, bro. Nice. So in the topics that we've went through, I want to start with Sydney.
Sydney, yeah, sure.
You know, I want to know why you moved up there and what happened there.
So I studied software engineering at uni.
Yeah.
As a kid growing up, I absolutely loved games. They're technology and story. It's the overlap of those two. Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time was one of my favorites. Final Fantasy VII was one of my favorites.
That's a Final Fantasy VII tattoo right there.
Oh, is that Red 13?
Yeah. Yeah. No. It's the door knocker from Cloud's Pauldron.
Oh, cool.
The wolf head.
That's awesome.
And then I've got Final Fantasy 13, and then Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, wow. Okay, my people.
Yeah. Like this is meant to be like a patchwork. It's on its way, but a patchwork Final Fantasy sleeve.
I like the art. It's cool. I don't have any tattoos, but
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Big fan.
Yeah. So I love games. I studied software engineering, and I really hoped to get a job in the games industry. So I was applying. There were a few game studios in Melbourne, but I wound up getting a job in Sydney for a finance company. And it was the right sort of work. The language was C++, which is what a lot of games were made in at the time. But it was more to do with stock market surveillance. So the apps and code that we wrote would help identify insider trading. And I have a pretty good mathematical brain, so I took the job.
Yeah.
And I remember, packing all of my stuff into the car. My parents helped me move. We drove from Canberra to Sydney. They set me up in a little studio apartment in Annandale, which is in the inner west.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my career began. I was 20 years old. I'd never lived away from home before. And now I'm alone in the big city with this fantastic job and, all of these options available to me.
Yeah. So in that part, like through the software engineering and through your initial, journey into living by yourself for the first time, you mentioned something before about mental health and drug issues.
Absolutely.
And I want to know your story about that, why it happened, how you got better.
Yeah.
Some highs, some lows, all those things.
Absolutely. So I was a pretty good student. I got good marks, and I liked doing well at school. So I was pretty straight and narrow through school.
Yeah.
Just as I was graduating from university in 2005, I decided, okay, school's finished, time to party.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to start smoking pot. I went out looking for it. I had one friend who I knew was using, so I asked him to hook me up. So that drug use started in Canberra just before I moved.
Yeah.
So I moved to Sydney, got this new apartment.
So it was like pot was your gateway.
Pot was my
into
gateway, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even touch cigarettes before
Yeah.
that. I maybe used pot at a party once before then. It just came up, but I decided I'm going to start using this.
Yeah.
And initially I didn't know anyone in Sydney, so I didn't know where to go. So I came back to Canberra a couple of times.
To see people.
Yeah, to see people
you
at
see
school.
people and get it along the way.
Exactly. And then I would take it back to Sydney. But eventually I started looking for a Sydney dealer, and I found one, and that's when things started to get a bit rocky for me.
And what happened there? Did it stick with pot or did it
Yeah,
turn it off?
so, you know, I'm 20 years old, I have money, I'm in Sydney. I started asking for ecstasy.
Yeah.
And when you asked for pills, there was no pill testing back then. So
you
you
could be getting anything.
Exactly, it could be anything. You take what they gave you. A couple of times, I'm sure it was just completely fake. It did nothing. A few times, it was definitely something. But that sort of escalated, and my thought processes at the time, I'm just partying, I'm just having fun. I'm not a druggie. But I did go seeking, more and more, and I'm pretty sure, well, I sort of graduated onto, methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that one either.
I was surprised at how quickly it snowballed.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I knew it was risky, but I thought, I've got this under control. I can handle it. But the dealers, they saw me as a good customer. You should try this. You should try that. You should, do you want more? So I was a willing participant, and they were eager to sell me whatever I would buy.
Yeah. Because it sounds like this just started as something just to have fun initially.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like, like I've grown up around a lot of drug addicts myself, and a lot of those people were looking to escape completely just from some stuff that happened.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be a big common factor that I saw. But if occasionally you'd see the person who's just come in to have a party and a dabble, and it's just ended up with something completely different.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what's happened for you.
Yeah. Well, it started out, just as a bit of experimentation, and what actually happened in my apartment building, I remember hearing some really cool music coming from across the hall.
Yeah.
And I could hear people in there. So I knocked on the door, and inside was a guy with a studio. He was a DJ, and he was making music, and he had a couple of mates around, and they were smoking cones. So I sort of joined in, and they said, "Hey, do you want to come to this rave?"
Yeah.
So I remember going to this big 5,000 person rave on my 21st birthday, and that's when I started, got into speed and various other things. So it started out as partying, but very quickly
Escalated to something
into trying to escape pain, because
it creates it sometimes.
it does. I think the job, it wasn't what I loved. I wanted to be in games. This is finance, so I wasn't happy at work. So basically, as soon as I got home, I would smoke cones and get high.
Yeah.
And I had rules, but the rules were, okay, no drugs in the morning before work, but I quickly broke that rule.
Yeah.
And then no drugs at work.
Quickly broke that rule.
And I could see things were getting worse, but I was very much in denial.
Yeah.
I didn't want to confront this. I didn't want to admit I had a problem. What happened very quickly, and I remember the exact day, so August 31st, 2007. Things had been going downhill for a while. I'm sure my bosses have found out about my drug use. My behavior is really erratic. I go to work, and at about 11 a.m. they call an all staff meeting in the boardroom. And John, come to the front, please. And the CEO, he gets there, he looks down at me, he says, "John, you're fired." And I'm just like, and I absolutely lost it.
Holy shit.
Absolutely lost it. I'm like, fuck you, I hate you, this company is nothing without me, fuck all of you. and I just lost my shit at absolutely everyone. And that was the beginning of my psychotic breakdown.
Yeah, gotcha. But that's something like extreme for someone to do that in
Yeah.
front of so many people.
Exactly. It's like, I would say 25 people in that room.
Holy shit.
And I went through each and every one of them. I found something to abuse in each and every one of them. You know? Fuck you for being fat. Fuck you for being trans. Fuck you for being short, you know, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I found a way to hate everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and that came out at that moment.
And I came out at that moment.
Yeah. So what happened with the mental health, like, because clearly at that time,
Yeah.
you know, there was no coping strategies, no
Yeah.
no management strategies, and the use would definitely exacerbate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So can you share with us what happened?
Yeah. And I've had a lot of time to think about that day. You know, I had that meltdown in the boardroom. Eventually I left. I went home, I got high. I was, you know, screaming at the walls. There was a video camera in my microwave. There was a listening device in the ceiling lights.
Yeah.
You know, people on the other side of the wall from my past had tracked me down. So I spent the next few hours basically breaking down in my apartment. And it was a full-blown psychotic episode at around a bit after midnight. You know, I realized I needed help. I didn't understand what was going on. And, you know, I got on the phone. I called my parents back in Canberra. My dad answered, but I couldn't face him. I asked for my mother, and I said, "You've got to come get me. I need to go wherever drug addicts go to get better." I was expecting rehab or something. I wasn't fully aware I had schizophrenia.
Yeah.
But they did. They came and they got me. They got in the car at about 1:30 in the morning, drove the 4 hours to Sydney, and they picked me up. And I remember one thing. You know, I was pretty incoherent, but I said I need help. And my mother said, you know, "When does this need to happen?" And I said, "Oh, it has to be soon." And the voices said, "It has to be now."
Yeah.
So that's what I said. And that was the kick in the ass I needed to get actual help, to go into recovery, and to start quitting and doing all the other things that were necessary.
Yeah, because it doesn't start overnight, you know, like something like this, because you're
Yeah.
clearly fucking healthy.
Yeah.
You know? I want to bring this up because, like, you've gone into something deep, and
Yeah.
it's a dark place.
Absolutely.
Right, I want to know, like, those first few things that you've done, you know, because it's baby steps to get to where you are today
Yeah.
as well. Especially what you're doing with theology, the resilience coaching,
Yep.
and like the dancing, bro.
The dancing,
It's
yeah.
fucking beautiful.
Oh God, we
But
had a show the other night, 2 weeks ago, I think. What's today? 2 and a bit weeks ago. And you know, the dancing is great. So my brother is a professional. He was dancing before he could walk. And as we grew up together, you know, he was dancing, I was playing video games.
Yeah.
But I always said, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. This isn't for me. But I decided I'll give it a try. So I put dance studio into Google Maps. I found a dance studio, took a few classes, was really great. I'm trash, but
Bro, I love watching it, right? Because it makes me feel like better. Like it's not like a bad way. Like it's like wholesome to me.
But I'm willing
It's wholesome.
to stick with it. Right?
Yeah, because you are so clearly having a great
Yeah, I
time,
love
right?
it.
And it's like wholesome to me to watch. I was watching your latest one, and then I went through and started watching
Yeah,
more.
so this is on my Instagram. If you want to
I
look at
love
my
it.
awful dance videos.
Well,
But I love the challenge of learning something new.
yeah,
And there was a show a couple of weeks ago. I performed in the show. It was just, you know, such an amazing highlight of my life.
yeah,
So the dancing is something is a much more positive thing that I've sort of welcomed into my life.
yeah,
But going back to the recovery and how to put all this back together. So step one, asking for help.
yeah,
And I was willing to admit I have a drug addiction. I was willing to admit I needed help. And, pretty quickly, my parents took me to the GP and they said, okay, we've assessed him, might be a little bit of psychosis here. We'll put him on olanzapine, which is
Yep.
a very common antipsychotic. And I didn't particularly respond very well to that. So they checked me into the psych ward, which back then it was the Woden Psychiatric Services Unit.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, wasn't it?
It's the public hospital, so
Yeah, there's only so much they can do.
there's only so much they can do. And, I wanted to think that I wasn't one of the high risk patients, but I was. I had to go in the high dependency unit a couple of times. I did have private health cover, so I was able to transfer to Hyson Green,
Yeah,
which
in
is the
Belconnen.
nicer one in Belco.
Yeah.
Belconnen. And the nurses were really good. The doctors were really good. They were trying to help me, but I remember saying, when can I go back to Sydney? When can I go back to work? And they said about a month. And I'm like, a month? Oh, that's forever. But I ended up being in the psych ward for 6 months, and then this illness basically deleted a solid 10, 15 years of my life.
Yeah.
And recovering from that was not easy. But I think I had hope in the future, and something I really believe in is the hero's journey. It's a universal human adventure. You see it in Frodo Baggins, Luke Skywalker, Neo from The Matrix, Harry Potter, all these characters. And that's what sort of kept me going. The idea that a hero is challenged, a hero is tested, but eventually a hero becomes and then goes back to serve others.
Yeah.
So that's what kept me going. But the mental illness was so awful. It was rough. The confusion, just not knowing what's real and what's not. Like I was hearing voices all the time, and I was just going round and around in circles in my own head. And they're saying things like, "Oh, you're gonna need a heart and lung transplant in 6 months." And I'm like, "Oh God!" So I have to quit smoking cigarettes, because at the time, getting someone who's in crisis to quit smoking cigarettes
It's very hard.
not realistic. Right?
Yeah.
So you were allowed to smoke in the hospital in the little courtyard area, but that would make my anxiety go up, because the voices were saying, "Oh, you've got lung cancer, you've got lung cancer." All kinds of crazy things. Like one of my delusions was I had a cure for HIV/AIDS. I had antibodies in my bloodstream, so I kept saying to the doctors, you have to take blood, I can cure the world of HIV/AIDS. Another one, the whole hospital thing was an elaborate setup. All the doctors and nurses were actors. They just wanted to, create this elaborate system to observe me.
Bit of
like
the
that.
Truman Show, like.
Truman Show,
Yeah,
or Shutter Island,
Yeah.
that one with Leonardo DiCaprio. That this is a whole orchestrated thing
Yeah.
to try and help you, because you're not fully aware. So, and then just persecutory voices. The dealers are going to find you. The dealers are going to kill you. You've identified gang members, stuff like that. Just so much confusion and fear and anxiety, just off the charts. And I decided I was going to get clean. I decided I was going to stop using. And I remember on the night I had the breakdown, I flushed all my pills, I kept my weed, I kept my cigarettes, everything else was gone. Over the next few days, I couldn't bring weed into hospital with me. I didn't try to do that.
Yeah.
But the cigarettes I really wanted to quit, because in my mind, if I quit all the drugs, then I'm no longer an addict, then I'm okay again. But I did have a few relapses, and it took 3 and a bit years to quit smoking cigarettes.
They are so.
They
They are
are-
so.
Oh, nicotine is a hell of a
I've-
drug.
I've been like relapsing a bit, and I went
Yeah.
through a good 5 days of hypnotism,
Yeah.
and it worked really
Yeah.
well. And it's like I just
had the
I need to
hypnotism.
pick it back up because it's the one thing that's worked. Where I did 1 day hypnotism,
Yeah.
and then I was just like, yeah, fuck the cigarettes.
Yeah. How did you find it, the hypnotism?
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. Like it fucking, because I do the sleep one.
Yeah.
And I found it on fucking YouTube. Because it's just like I'm too financially challenged right
Yeah.
now to afford a real hypnotist. So I've been going onto YouTube and looking it up, and you just type in "quit smoking hypnosis."
Yes.
And then like it just sends you to sleep, and it speaks to your subconscious more.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
and so after 1 day of that, at the end of the next day, I only smoked a couple as well, and I'm nearly a 20 pack a day guy. And fucking at the end of the night, I threw out the cigarettes. Like just walk to the rubbish chute, because it's very easy with that. Is just
Yeah.
down the chute
Yeah.
and it's done.
That's gone.
And then next day, I went and got patches, right?
Yeah.
And just went from there. And
Yeah.
I lasted about 5 days without a cigarette until me and my girlfriend went to Sydney
Yes.
for a Parkway Drive concert. And then for some reason, I was like, oh, yep, we're on holiday. I don't have to care.
Yeah. Oh, it's so tough.
And it's been a week since that.
Yeah.
So there's been...
Well done. A week is awesome.
I went a couple of days without a cigarette again, and then it's like yesterday went to an engagement party with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
A packet of cigarettes, and it's like I'm on this on and off battle
It
with
is.
nicotine.
It's the worst.
It is fucking retarded, because I also grew up, you know, as I've said,
Yeah.
growing up with my own experience of addiction. Some people
Yep.
mine, some people others.
Yep.
And I remember something vividly. I'd never tried heroin, but I knew some people that really
Yeah.
loved it as a
Yeah.
teenager. And one of the older boys, he said to me, smokes are harder to give up than heroin. And I was like, bullshit, heroin's physically addictive. And I saw some of the struggles of their addiction and
Yeah.
the consequences. And it's now, right, because I've been smoking since I was 12,
Yeah.
where I'm like, this is fucking hard. Like, I've never
Yeah.
tried heroin, but I can understand in that way that
Yeah.
it's like,
It keeps coming.
I've given up other stuff.
Yeah.
I loved cocaine for a while, a little bit of methamphetamine in my teen years as well.
Yeah.
And the smoking, holy fuck.
Yeah.
I just can't fucking, I've given that up fucking like, and it seems like so easy in comparison,
Yeah. Shit.
right? Is that the smokes are the hardest thing, the
Yeah.
nicotine.
So where do you come from, Daniel? Where did you grow up?
Me, I grew up here
Here
in Canberra. My background's fairly messy.
Mhm.
You know, like I grew up around a lot of drug addiction, whether it was in the rooms of AA and NA growing up with my parents or
Yep.
theirs,
Yeah.
to then some of my own growing up, you know, for a few years on and off. And yeah, I've dabbled with quite a lot,
Yeah.
and yeah, just grew up in some, like for a while there I was bit of an aggressor when I was a teen as well, you know, so part of the cycle and part of the negative side of it, you know. So yeah, I've come from some places.
Yeah.
I've come from some places, a lot of family trauma too.
And what I find interesting, and I've talked to someone about this. So I'm from Canberra,
Yeah.
so same city, but I came from, I don't know if privileged is the right word, but a very stable, very well-to-do
Yeah.
home. My dad was a successful public servant. My mother is a teacher, and I had a very, very stable home life. In terms of family, we had diplomatic postings, so we moved around a fair bit.
Yeah.
Thailand, Washington, Port Moresby, Malaysia. But as a home, I couldn't have asked for more. You know, no alcohol or drug problems at home. Very, very stable, loving environment. I'm still on. I love my parents to bits. I've got the best parents in the world. So, people ask, John, why did you get mixed up in this? And I'm like, well, I decided I didn't want to be a good boy anymore.
Yeah.
It was just a bit of rebellion.
Curiosity and rebellion.
Yeah. And given that, even in university, I didn't really drink at all. There was a uni pub that you could go to, but I didn't spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So even no matter how nice your childhood looks, you can still get mixed up in it if you make the wrong choices.
I saw that a lot as a teenager.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there were times where I wasn't a good influence for others. Where I saw people coming from that as well. And definitely done the wrong thing and given them.
Yeah. What would you change if you could?
Trying to be amongst others. What I've learned being older is that I don't really care about what other people think anymore.
That's a powerful word.
And all I'd cared about when I was younger, because I didn't really fit in many places back then, is that I cared what others thought, and was easily led astray. Despite growing up with that, I was still happily led further into things, to the point where when I was younger, I did dabble with selling some nefarious substances, some hardcore stuff, and I had to learn a lot of lessons through that. I never really touched some of it. Like, I touched methamphetamine, and that was well after the events. And that was about a 3-year thing for me. I've always dabbled with pot on and off, and I'm happy to have a sneaky J here and there still. But there was also another time where my father had ended up on the news. And I dabbled a little bit with cocaine at that point, and this was in my mid-20s. And eventually it became a full-blown addiction, and he didn't make the news in a good light. It affected my family quite severely, that we're all very broken from it. And so that was about another 3-year thing with cocaine. To the point where I went through everything that I'm lucky to have a home. I was at that point as well. It's taken about 3 years of going on a journey.
And well done for doing it. It's not an easy path.
It's not, is it? Good on you too. It's not easy, because as we both know, it's readily available everywhere and anywhere, and all you need is money. They don't care, and it's hard not to go back some days.
And I'll build on it. You just said they don't care. I really feel like the dealers, they saw me as an easy mark. We can get him hooked. We can keep him hooked. He's got a great job. We'll just take his money.
And that's it. They don't care. It's blank face.
Exactly.
It's blank faces. They're all the same blank face.
And that was really difficult for me to accept. I felt like these guys, they're my friends, right? They got my back, right? So coming to terms with the fact that these people just saw me as, all they wanted was money, and they didn't care what happened to me. I mean, obviously they didn't want me to, OD or whatever and die, so I lose the revenue stream.
And then it's also hate. It's also hate upon them, which nobody wants.
Exactly. But yeah, they were perfectly willing to chew me up and spit me out.
So from there, you've gone through your journey of recovery, and so it's been quite a strong one.
It has.
To doing theology. and
Theology, yeah.
men's coaching, like men's resilience.
Yeah.
And now I want to know about these two things. 'Cause
Sure.
there's quite a lot to that, especially from what you've come through.
Yeah.
You know.
So when I first became unwell, I had a whole bunch of religious delusions. I could hear these voices, and I was trying to make sense of it, but you can't. It just doesn't make sense. But I was thinking, okay, I can hear the voice of God. I've got a prophetic gift, and that thinking that I'm special, I have a message for the world that people need to hear. That consumed me for quite a bit. That consumed me for many years, and I'm trying to seek out God and find meaning in the midst of all of this. But I was just going about it the wrong way. And
Would you like some water?
I'll take some. Yes, please.
Yeah. Sorry, it's usually something I put up first, but I was just a bit distracted today.
That's all right. Don't worry. Do you edit things yourself, or do you have someone edit it?
No, I edit it myself with DaVinci.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. It works on that iPad pretty well. Like you don't need the PC version, and that's still a powerful version.
Yeah. Nice.
There's just a couple of
Thank
things
you.
that the PC version can do better. But for what I do, which is just, voice isolation, clean up the color a little bit,
Yeah.
add an intro, add some music, add an outro. It works pretty well, it's perfect for me.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
So I have all these religious delusions. I think I have special powers. I feel like I have a special mission, and I'm trying to make sense of all this. Now, of course, it's the illness. You can't sort of reason your way out of schizophrenia, and that's what I was trying to do. But amidst all that chaos, amidst all that confusion, I did feel a spiritual calling. And what kept me going through those 10, 15, 16 years was hope that things would heal and that there was a greater purpose. And I tie that in with the hero's journey. The road of trials is long and hard, or difficult, but there is a purpose to it. And I was raised Catholic. I went through Catholic schools. When I got to about 18 at university, I became hardcore atheist. Just a bit of rebellion there, but I felt called to sort of reassess what was important in my life.
Yeah.
What did I really think I was here for? So I returned to faith, and I started thinking, what is this supposed to teach me? How do I heal from this? And I realized that the body and the mind, they might forever bear the scars, but the soul will go on. And I feel like I can serve the world in a meaningful way with this experience if I integrate my faith. That's what I found helpful.
Yeah.
So I decided I was going to study theology. I applied for St. Mark's here in Canberra. We've got the National Theological Centre here. I'm in my second semester at the moment. I'm doing ethics and New Testament. In fact, after this, I'm off for my ethics lecture, which is fascinating. And I'm actually going to be looking at the ethics of treating people who are mentally ill
Yeah.
and who can't make their own decisions.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a really interesting connection there. And it's a very, very interesting area of thought to me. And the men's resilience coaching, a little over 2 years ago, I discovered this fantastic network called the Speakers Institute. They do business coaching, personal development, and public speaking. I did their boot camp. I did their 12-month program for Protege. It has intensives. It has one-on-one coaching. It has online curriculum. I loved it. It changed my life, and it's where I got the clarity. I remember the exact moment. There was a confidence and certainty intensive, and that's when I realized, okay, I don't want to be doing IT anymore.
Yeah.
I want to speak. I want to share a message, and I want to coach people who are struggling.
Yeah. Shit, I just had the best question and I just lost it.
It'll come back.
I got so absorbed into what you were saying. Fuck. Right, let's come back to a couple of questions I've written down as my safety. So I was in faith as well. Are you talking religious as well?
Yeah. So I'm a Catholic.
Yep.
And you know, they have a lot of rules. But ultimately I belong to Christ. That's what's important.
One of my favorite interviews I've done, and I'd love to get a take 2 with him as well, since it's been about a year since I interviewed him last, is this young fella named Cooper. And this is a great one into faith, and I'm fairly sure he's more Christian.
Yep. But
his story was mind-boggling because he has terminal brain cancer.
Yeah.
And he's had 6 surgeries so far to get to the point where he is now.
Yeah. Gosh.
There is a kick to it where he's on an experimental drug trial.
Yeah.
For last I checked, it was only 21 people in the world and 3 people in Australia.
How old is Cooper?
He was 21 when I interviewed him, and he came from a housing background in Wollongong, in Warilla. Quite an interesting story. But he found faith through that, and he's not someone from a faithful background. His family's not there, but this guy is powerful because of his faith, you know, and he's still alive. I saw him posting up a story of him in a nice fucking suit the other day.
Yeah.
You know, and it fucking warmed my heart because he's still going.
He's still going.
He's still alive, and without the drug, they said if he did chemo, he would have, was it 10 years to live? About 10 years or so, I think.
Yeah.
Without the chemo, it was 12 months.
Wow.
But they took a massive risk by putting him onto this trial because I don't think he can do the chemo and radiation.
Oh, okay, right.
So through it, he's part of this church, and it's quite powerful. Like, I'm more agnostic than anything, you know. I know there's something there, but I couldn't tell you what. You definitely felt his faith. And how powerful that came off this person. Faith is quite fucking amazingly strong, and spirituality, the two. They can change people's lives. Like AA is more on spirituality than faith, but the person is free to choose their own. And you see the results of spirituality through the 12-step programs, and what it can do for people. And it seems to be quite a fucking powerful thing, you know. So I commend you.
Well, thank you.
I commend you.
And I've certainly wrestled with it. You know, it's not something that comes easily. You know, at the beginning, you know, my sort of faith was very transactional. I believe, so you'll give me a miracle, I'll be okay. And that was my motivation, right? I do this, you do that. But it's not like that. I think for me, I just, you know, I look out the window and I see so much potential, so much creativity, so much to explore, and I feel like there's something beyond. There's something out there that made this, and we have a place.
Everything makes too much sense, you know. Like I am big on that. That is where I see the unknown, and I'm like, well, there's something there, because fucking everything fits together too well for it to be a random occurrence. The sun setting, the moon setting, the every single piece of life here has a purpose.
That's a fantastic one. You know, the sun and the moon, they're the same size. You know?
Yeah.
What are the odds of that happening, you know, any other planet?
Like, and we're just in the perfect position for life to magically chaos itself. Like,
and it doesn't, it's not straightforward, but we sense there's something there.
yeah, you know, I'd say my struggle with religion is purely human.
Yes.
That is where human has gotten involved and tried to paint a picture.
Yeah.
You know, and this is exactly what is, and this is how it should be, and this is what we tell. So,
yeah, exactly.
I'm a big believer in God, yes, because things just...
The clues are there if you will.
The clues are fucking there. And not only that, here's another one, and this one broke me a little bit at the time.
Tell me.
My father was a terrible person. Not a bad person. I've come to grips with that. Not a bad person, but a terrible at life one. Could never succeed. And he died that way.
Yeah.
He died that way with making some severe mistakes to others. When he died, and I could be amongst the people that wished him ill, because thousands had and do, but he's dead now, so that's over and done with. But when he died, my nonna, who was heavily religious, more Roman Catholic than anything, you know, fucking heavily religious. Like one of those people that lives by it, you know, who does her best to live by these principles, and there are very few people in the religion game that do. I've seen plenty of people compromise their beliefs. When he died, and nobody knew, you know, like the media hadn't gotten onto it yet, and you know, none of the family friends of hers or mine or anyone's knew. Her friend had a dream, you know, and it was quite an odd dream. And it says that there's faith there, you know, it says that there's something there, because this man who was in pain his whole life and ended up inflicting that pain to people. And it gave me a big sense of relief in a funny way as well. Is that she had this dream, and that he was in a grass field, you know, plenty of light, plenty of life. Plenty of green. And he told her and looked at her and said, I am no longer in pain and I'm in a better place. And so she's woken up from this dream, gotten on the blower to my nonna, you know, and been like, I've had this dream, you know, and my nonna's like, well, he died, you know, and like it was, funnily enough, that too coincidental, you know, way too coincidental, way too odd, way too out there to be fucking random. And so there's another one, you know, that's another point where I see a hand of something, you know, another realm, another possibility, another plane of existence, you know, for the spiritual, for the spirit, because we're not just blood, we are physically blood and
we have
blood,
our body,
but there's something there driving it. Otherwise we would, and I still believe that animals, it's the same thing, but otherwise we would be meaningless lives, just eating and blah blah blah, no thought, no individuality. Fuck, you've gotten more information out of me than a lot of... I don't tend to talk about my beliefs. I tend to keep it very close to the chest.
What you've said is absolutely fascinating. So, Neo from The Matrix is one of my favorite stories. It's hero's journey. My business is based around it. I will be Morpheus, so you can be Neo. Right?
Yeah.
Morpheus is the god of dreams. So I love hearing about dreams. And that's a fascinating one. I've had a couple of incredible dreams in my life. But And sometimes dreams are just random, but every now and then our subconscious is trying to tell us something.
Yeah.
Or there's just a touch of the beyond. And it's interesting where they sort of lead us and what they get us thinking about. Because, you know, I don't want to cause you too much pain, but having this man as your father, I'm sure was very difficult.
Incredibly, but I've dealt with that.
Yeah,
You know,
you've dealt with that.
he died about, you know, a good handful of years ago, and from there it was like I could heal because I knew that this person wasn't going to inflict more pain, you know, and that he was finally at peace because he had a traumatic background and he ended up inflicting his trauma upon others.
Yes.
Through drug use as well, and there was something where, you know, as much as I disliked the man, I look back now and I don't dislike him. I don't, you know, I forgive him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that guy, he wasn't a bad guy, but it was just things took control of him.
And I think that's a really important insight, right? So, you know, these drug dealers that I'd been associating with, who had taken advantage of me, had abused me, caused, with my help, the illness that wrecked my life.
Yeah.
I had to make a decision. I can either hate them forever or I can forgive them.
Yeah.
And I decided after a while, I'm not going to be consumed by hate. I'm going to forgive these guys and move on.
Yeah.
And so that was the decision that I made. And I realized that doing that was an important part of my own journey, important part of the healing process to say, you did some terrible things, but I'm going to forgive you and move on. And I think there's a lot of power in that. Obviously, you know, it would be great to hear them say, I'm sorry I hurt you. To hear them say that would be helpful, but ultimately it's a decision we have to make for ourselves, assuming they said that to us. How would we respond?
Yeah.
And just the dream that you mentioned to me is very interesting. What do you think it means?
To me?
Yeah.
His pain ended,
His
you
pain
know. He wasn't well when he was sentenced to life in a correctional facility.
Yeah, wow.
He only managed to get through a year and a half of that, and I think one of the reasons he went back to the drugs after his initial crimes, which were horrendous, you know, but is his health. He was dying, cirrhosis of the liver, Hep C, eventually led to liver cancer, diabetes as well, and he'd just become too accustomed to jail at that point. And the person that he was, you know. So when he was dying, I think there was nothing he could do. He had these grand plans when getting out, and it's like his health couldn't match up to his mind, let alone the things that he'd done. And so when he did end, you know, his life ended, and it was due to the cancer that got him in the end. I'm just glad his pain ended at that point. It was quite a lot to look at. Because I didn't talk to the guy. I kept I took a step back because of the nature of his crimes. And the last time I saw him was on his deathbed, but he was brain dead. So it was, look, his pain ended, and because his pain ended, a lot of others' pain ended, despite the suffering they will face for the rest of their life. he can't inflict anything else on anybody.
Okay.
I think the dream just meant that even a man like that in death is worthy of forgiveness, because a lot of us are not worthy of that forgiveness
Yeah.
while we're alive. He could never give it to himself. Nobody was going to give it to him, not even his own family.
Yeah.
We couldn't. He earned his forgiveness there from me.
Okay. Wow.
Knowing he was at peace from that dream, it was a powerful tool of moving on.
Powerful tool.
Yeah.
And yeah, moving on. That's one of the things that we really want to do when we've been through a difficult or traumatic period. We've slipped into negative behaviors. We've made poor choices. How do you shake off the demons? And that's what I want to help people do. I feel like, I didn't see myself as a bad person in spite of all the things I was doing.
You're not a bad person. Bad people don't do the things you do.
Well, I was surprised by the actions that I ended up taking. I didn't think I was capable of certain things, and I won't go into too much detail. But I feel that we can, how quickly and deeply we can fall into the abyss. Right?
Yeah.
And once you're there, it's hard to get out. But I do believe, so what am I trying to say? Even if you have committed terrible actions, there is a possibility of redemption. And I feel that faith for me is a component of that, but also taking responsibility, committing to recovery, and choosing the path that, mending those relationships, refusing to participate in certain behaviors, activities, or business. So even if you royally screw things up, you can get out of it if you commit to the path.
I think that's been a lot of my journey there.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately for him, I think it was just not enough time, too old. He didn't have the time with his life to fix his mistakes at all. Or earn his forgiveness. So maybe I thought of it wrong before. But I was, we're coming to the end of our episode.
I will finish with one thought though.
Yeah, I want you to, yeah.
So, like I said, I've got wonderful parents, and one of the stories that always inspired me was the prodigal son, from Luke's Gospel, I believe. And we call it the prodigal son, but it could also be called the compassionate father. So when I called my father up and I said to him, I've screwed up really badly. I am mentally ill, I'm addicted to drugs, I'm mixed up in all kinds of trouble. Will you come help me? And he said yes. And that's why I'm where I am today.
That's beautiful. That is, before, and this is how I know the guy isn't bad, before his first crimes, I was 17, 18.
Yeah.
Nearly 19, I think, actually. And I'd been through some, through the wars with methamphetamine addiction. And I called my dad up, because he was in and out of recovery my whole life, and a majority of his, through the rooms and things like that. And I called him up and I asked him for help, and I'd never do that, never done that, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was not a trusting kid. And yeah, God loved the man, he came down despite his troubles and fucking watched his son smoke weed. We went to a couple of meetings together. He saw fucking the scabs on the face, the weight loss, you know, and he tried his best to help his son. And that must have been so confronting for a man like that, because it wasn't maybe 6 months to a year after that, he delved back into drug use, and that's where he committed his first crime. So I relate a lot to what you said, like it chills me a bit, you know. So I'm really happy, you know, because like fathers are meant to help their sons, you know, and yours done so much for you that it's fucking like, look at who you are today. You're a fucking, I hope he's proud. You know, I genuinely hope he's proud, because like what sits before me here as a man must be a complete fucking 180, right, from the person some years ago.
Yep. And he knows I love him because I told him on Saturday.
Oh, that's good. That's beautiful. I hope so.
And I would like to have children of my own one day, but I think I've got a few issues I need to figure out first.
Yeah. Oh man, that's one of my big fears.
Yep.
But is there anything you would like to leave with our listeners to think about?
Yeah,
you know, like a particular, just leave our listeners with some food for thought.
Look, I love personal transformation. If you'd like to get to know me better, go to my landing page at unplugescape.net.
Yep.
It's a free webinar that I put on every 2 to 3 weeks. We look at the hero's journey. We look at turning your life around. We look at how you can go from being down and out to being the hero that you've been called to be.
Yeah.
Unplugescape.net.
I'm gonna get you to send me those details, right? Because then I can put it into the video so people know where to go as well, and for all your socials.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'll share my link tree with you.
Yeah.
It's got my socials, everything.
Yeah, easy. That's perfect. Because I want everybody to be able to go see what you're about as well.
Yeah, awesome. And I've got my own little podcast. Seeking the Beyond is mine. If you'd like to talk about your spiritual experiences, I'd love to have you as a guest.
I would love to feature onto your show.
Awesome.
I would love to. We'll fucking like 100% do that. And lastly, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing your story. You know, it's been an amazing chat, an amazing experience getting into your story and seeing the man that you are.
And you too. You've overcome so much.
Thank you, my friend.
So long.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, we're going to end this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe to, you know, see more videos, guys.
Definitely.
And if you want to, you know, if anyone sees and they're able to give me their story, I'd love to hear it too. So let's wrap this up, right?
So long.
So long.
Them up loud, bro. Play that shit loud, yo, and scream. That's the roar. Make the bass rattle the floor, rattle the wall. We ain't on no bullshit like matadors. Listen closely, each punch that I spat shatters jaws. And next, SMS and send a message to a friend. You just checked the new few shit, it's the best shit yet. Both peek the catalog, can't decide the best one. Now you told your friend get into do step.